Oh, we are live. Doesn't Joe Rogan say that? He's like, we're live. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining this live stream today. You know what? It was too big to rig, wasn't it? Too big to rig. I mean, look, a couple years ago for Halloween, my kids dressed up as Donald Trump. And last night, he did it again. He did it again. So now we know he was our 45th president, and now he's our 47th president. Elected twice, they say, behind all odds. But the man did it. You know what? And it was a little bit touch and go, because yesterday I wanted to do a story about elections and about American election coverage, because sometimes we think we know things, but we don't know everything and what states matter and which ones are the swing states and what have you. So I was doing my research yesterday, and then I hear that in Georgia, bomb threat by the Russians at 2 polling stations, and that they had problems with voting machines in Pennsylvania. Well, those are very crucial states to call an election. And I'm thinking, here we go. Here we go again. We're going to have to wait forever. They're not going to call it. Look at what just happened to us in BC with what happened to John Rustad and the ridiculous shenanigans going around that election. And I just thought, this is going to happen. This is going to happen again, because there's a big machine behind Kamala Harris, big funds, big money. Netflix alone gave her I think it was $7 million. She gets access to all the campaign money that Biden has. There's a big machine installing that woman. And you kind of think, I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to have a hanging Chad situation? But no, he prevailed. He prevailed. So there you go. The 47th US president. So let's see what he does. Let's see what JD Vance does. But I have a very special guest. I'm very excited to talk to my good friend, fellow colleague, ex-Corus broadcaster like myself. One day I'll tell you all about he'll tell you all about what Corus did to him. But let's bring him in right now, Mr. Shadoe Davis. Shadoe Davis.
Oh, my beautiful friend. How are you doing, Anita?
I was sweating a little bit because I don't go live. And you were watching me. I mean, Shadoe is backstage like humming, and I'm like, I can't get my microphone working. But I did it. I did it.
You look great. You sound great. Everything's cool. Yeah, I do this every night. So it's not a big deal for me, but I'm happy to see you.
I'm always like, did I click the right buttons or whatever I did? Shadoe. So here we are. We're 2 Canadian broadcasters. You've been in when you worked for Corus, you worked for CJ. What did you work for again?
It was CJOB in Winnipeg. I was the morning show host of that radio station for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, obviously I worked for Global for 20 years. Global has done some terrible things to me. I just found out new things this year, which I should talk about in the future. But today we're not.
What new things? What do you mean? This is interesting to me. Do you not want to talk about it now? I mean, that could be another show, because this is supposed to be
another show, because there's some sort of legal thing I'm doing now, and I have such a big mouth. I'll just say whatever. I'm just an open book, but I have to ask my legal person if I'm allowed to talk about what they did. I think they did something even more horrible that I just discovered this year. That's a big teaser. And you, wow. I know I could talk about it with you. And you would get it. It was bad. It was something else bad. So there's a teaser to talk about. I'll ask my legal counsel if I can talk about it. But I just
make sure you do.
It. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. So you and I are part of Canadian media. I have worked for CTV and Global and lots of CKVU and, all kinds of places. So I've been in that machine for such a long time, and I
Okay, well,
do
now
not.
let me stop you for one
Yeah.
second. And I know this is your show, and I'm not used to being on this side of the screen, but I
Yeah.
have a question that
Yes.
goes back a few weeks. You worked in production, you were in control rooms of
Mhm,
newsrooms for over 20 years. You
mhm,
put together these shows, um,
mhm,
piece by piece, content director, all of these things that you did.
mhm,
You oversaw editing of stories, all of that stuff. So let me ask you,
mhm,
when CTV ran
mhm.
that Franken sentence of Pierre Poilievre
Yeah,
about a month and a half ago, and the Conservative Party were all up in arms about it, and
yeah,
they complained to CTV and said no more interviews until you guys
yeah,
apologize. And CTV, they actually got called up before committee
yeah,
and were questioned by many Conservative MPs. The
yeah,
VP of
mm,
CTV News got up and said, "No, we don't have any partisanship. We don't. We're not one-sided with their
yeah,
news coverage."
yeah.
That Franken sentence that
Mhm,
was edited to
mhm,
make it look like Pierre Poilievre said that we need an election based on dental care,
mhm.
as opposed to like what's his line all the time? It's about let's have a climate tax election.
Yeah,
That's not an
carbon.
accident. They
Yeah,
said that that was accidental and they were just doing it for time.
yeah.
And that's not an accident, right? I mean, that's
No.
something that you would have to actually take your time to think about and construct from different pieces, from different interviews, from different days, correct?
Well, Shadow, I'm glad that you brought that up because I did a big video on that. It's on my YouTube channel, and for some reason that got the most views ever. So people can look for that video, and I explain how that could never happen. First of all, if we just sidetrack for a little bit for everyone that's just joined us, we're talking about the CTV edit with Pierre. And let me tell you, okay, so that was done on a weekend show on a national broadcast. So you know how many producers are have their hands in that type of thing, right? So basically they said that the audio was mangled and they had to make an edit or whatever, right? But that never happens because I explained this quite thoroughly, but my brain isn't focused on that right now. But it can never happen because as video comes into the newsroom, it is transcribed, it is shot listed. So you would never, an editor would never cut that by mistake because a producer would be picking the clips. The producers pick the clips down to every single detail. So when they cut that sentence together, that was not a mistake. You're not going to make a mistake like that. So in committee, the CTV president said, "Oh, well, the reporter went rogue after the producer had vetted the script." That is not, why would they do that? Reporters never do that. Reporters never work with the producer. Producer approves the script, time codes everything, and then the reporter goes rogue. You wanna get fired? That
That
would never happen, and then for that to run, that just doesn't even happen. Because a lot of times we check our stories before we run it, if we have time, before we run it in the newscast.
you
Mhm.
pretty much have to simply because you want to know exactly what's on that, right? I mean, it's just like any show that we do independently here now today. Everything that I run on my nightly show is vetted, it's checked. I've read the script that
Yeah,
I'm going to read beforehand if I have a
yeah,
script at all, which is a story from somewhere, not something I've personally written. Or if I'm going to run a video piece, I have put it together myself or I
yeah,
have at least watched it. I know exactly what's going to happen. No
yeah.
surprises, right?
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
so when this happened, I went, and then they fired those two people who were
Oh,
supposedly.
whatever. They were just the fall guys, I believe. Like, and also in the news systems at Global, we used ENPS, and at CTV News, I don't know what they use. I think it's iNews or something like that. Anytime an editor saves something or scripts are saved, it's saved in the archives. Just like how when we save drafts, you can go back and look at drafts. Your completed versions at Global, it was called show prior versions. And all you could do is click on a button and you could see the prior versions of the script and you could see the cuts that were made too. So it's so easy to prove. So the CTV president could say, "Look, we this was the original story, but ooh, that bad boy went and recut it." Yeah. So
Also, he
they can
claimed
prove
that
it.
these two employees were veteran employees. They weren't rookies. So if
Yeah,
they
but
were
you would
veterans,
never do
they would
that.
have the experience. They would absolutely know that this is something we should not be doing.
Oh
right?
God, no. And there's no reason for them to do that. There's if they say the producer said you cut it like this and they go rogue and they go on their own and recut it, why would you do that? You would never sort of defy your producer because the producer is the head honcho of the show. They also said that the audio was mangled coming in because the Dejero, the piece of equipment that they used, gave them some bad audio. Whatever, you're CTV, you're a network. You get it from CPAC, get it from a sister station, get your clean audio, your clean video, cut it together. Don't you deliberate anytime we're cutting something. I'm going to play a piece later today that I cut, but I did not change the context of what the person was saying. I just cut it down. It's completely different if you say Billy went to school on a rainy Monday, fell down and scraped his knee, and if you cut that to Billy went to school on Monday. Like you can cut that, but that doesn't explain what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it was Monday and he fell down and he cut his knee, or what? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It saves the context of the meaning of what
Yeah.
the person was
If
trying to say.
anybody's interested, I explained it much better in my video that I did, which I'll put in the description later, right?
Well,
But
I think you
yeah,
did a fine job of explaining it now. And so that brings us to this left-wing media bias that exists
yeah.
in across the corporate media landscape, not just in Canada, but in the United States as well. I mean, I'm not sure if you were watching last night. I flipped around as I was doing my show. I
Yeah.
had an independent kid from YouTube. It's called Election Time. This kid has got 310,000 subscribers. He's 17 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And he was breaking down the election so well, state by state last night. And I thought this was great.
That's
After the show
fantastic.
was, I thought so too. After the show was over, I was cruising through MSNBC where they were melting down, like literally. I went to CNN. I went to some of the big network, NBC, CBS, ABC. And then later on, it was some of the Canadian broadcasters. And the
Mhm,
CBC panel with Rosie
mhm.
Barton, completely morose with
Completely
their,
morose, but it's
yeah.
what we expect. So here we are in the Canadian media landscape. The Canadian media has forever let the public down with this, with the you know what coverage, right? We're on YouTube, we're on my YouTube. And so trust is gone because everybody knows that they did not support Canadians, the way they covered the Freedom Convoy, the way they covered what happened with the, you know, they have betrayed the trust of Canadians, and they continue to betray the trust by the way they, kiss the ass of Trudeau, the way they cover events in Ukraine, the way they've covered everything, and particularly the way they've covered Trump. So, and the way they cover our local elections. We have John Rustad here. They crap all over him and lick the boot of David Eby, and
Let me
still
ask you.
he prevails.
I
Yeah,
wanted
but
to have
yeah.
you on my show at one point soon to talk about this BC election, which, by
Oh
the
yeah,
way, is
yeah.
still
It's
not
a
decided. It's going through judicial recounts right now, at
yeah,
least in two
yeah.
ridings, right? Because the vote count was so close, like under 100. And then they found 800 ballots that went uncounted the other day from pretty much a PC stronghold riding. So it's
Prin
not going to have any
Yeah, yeah,
effect.
so it didn't make Prince George Mackenzie. So it's not gonna,
Right.
like, maybe make a difference, but it might make a difference in the Surrey-Guildford, riding where they had a difference of 27, but now I don't know what the number is now. So, yeah, they have some explaining to do, and like I think we were texting before, why do we not just do pencil and paper?
Yeah. I mean, I never heard of any problems. I mentioned this on the show last night. I never
Yeah,
heard of any problems in elections before. We were using pencil and paper, making an X on the page, right? But then again,
yeah.
that could be because we didn't know that people were rigging things. It never would have occurred to us that any sort of election fraud was going on before all of this nonsense. But look at what happened in Florida last night. I mean, Florida closed their polls. I think it was 7 o'clock Eastern time or
Mhm,
8 o'clock Eastern time. And
mhm.
pretty much all of their results came in within an hour. Florida was called within an hour of their polls closing. That's a massive state. They have
Yeah,
40 electoral votes
yeah.
in Florida. And in the meantime, Nevada can't seem to get their act together. Arizona can't get their act together.
I
Michigan
expected
can't get their act.
I expected
Pennsylvania.
Nevada today. Like I expected Nevada and Arizona. I always thought that's like because some states take longer than others, but it's a very good example. Like Florida can get you the count in a couple of hours. Look at us in BC. We had our election October 19th. It's friggin' November 6th, and they still can't figure it out. Maybe they don't want to figure it out.
Well,
maybe there's something tying their hands. But tonight, okay, so last night we're here to talk about Trump. So Trump, I did not think we would see that result last night that we did so quickly. I thought they'd just string this out like a Bush Gore thing, like like
hanging
2016
Chad.
drama, the
Yeah.
hanging Chad. I did a video about that too because it's been a long time and I actually didn't know what a Chad was. But then a Chad is the piece of paper that you punch holes in and they put it in the machine. And when the holes come up, they call them hanging. And then you can it was punching holes and mucking up all the votes. So I did a story on that. But last night, Donald Trump, I didn't think we'd see this last night. That really surprised me that it was conclusive. So let's have a look at a little bit. I mean, he earned it. He earned it. So here it is.
Thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
So can I ask you this? Like maybe we don't have the answer to this question, but my partner never believes in anything, right? And he's very skeptical of everything. And I'm happy that Donald Trump won because of everything I've heard him say. I believe him. I believe that he cares. But do you have any question in your mind about why someone is so rich and older he could just retire, sit on a beach? Do
Oh,
you think why is he doing this?
it's because he loves his country. I mean, we could get into some deeper stuff here. I mean, I've heard some things from people, and we're talking about some pretty deep stuff that we can't get into on YouTube here. But if I'm to look at it just at face value, it seems to me that Donald Trump is an American traditionalist and that he loves his country and he wants to see it go back to normalcy and common sense. And that's why he keeps using that phrase over and over again, the one that the Marxists, as far as I'm concerned, have tried to paint as a far right extreme dog whistle, which is common sense. It's a phrase that we've been using for years. I grew up with this phrase. My dad said, use some common sense, for God's sakes, kid.
Mhm.
Look both ways before you cross the street, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And that's all we're talking about here. Somebody said to me the other day, I think it was on, maybe it was, it's tough to remember, Anita, these days, if
Mhm.
somebody actually says something to you, like as a person, or if you read it on X in a comment. It's
Mhm.
gotten to that point in our society. But somebody said, I remember when conservatives were progressive. And I said, we are progressive. We're just not stupid,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
course, we want to move society forward as well, but we want to make sure we've got all our T's crossed and all of our I's dotted before we do so. We want to
Mhm.
make sure that people aren't going to be harmed in the process as we move ahead. And we want to make sure that it's a good idea. And so that's why you ask around. You feel it's got to be a
Exactly.
good idea. Like, are you
Yeah.
telling me that men can be women and women can be
Yes.
men, and that women should be, playing with men in sports? No, of course not. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you
Is it
say
a good
that, then,
idea exactly, to take
you know,
hormone blockers? Is it a good idea to maybe remove body parts when you're 15 or, sometimes they do it at 13 or 12, and
yeah,
is this a good idea? We would say, "No, this not a good idea." Is it a good idea to maybe get a neck tattoo when you're 14? Probably not. Is it a good idea to smoke crack and start smoking cigarettes at 15, 16? No. So that's what we say. If you want to be gay, be gay. We don't nobody cares about that, but that's where they go too far. And it is amazing that lifelong Democrats like RFK, they're now going to be working with Trump and make America healthy again. For that, I think RFK is very smart. I think people don't give him enough credit for how resilient he is and how much he's put up with, you know? Even his own
Well,
family spoke badly about him
I
when he
mean,
took
never
Trump's
never
side.
mind the vaccine stuff. I mean, we
Yeah.
know his position on that. It's just
Mhm.
about general health, and it's about how big pharma and big food really has taken over the United States of America, and by association, pretty much the entire Western democratic world, right? I mean,
Mhm.
look at the obesity. If we go out just to a mall one Saturday afternoon,
Mhm.
I'm one of these people that I sit down and I'm a people watcher. I observe
Me too.
people.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of obesity, and in the States, it's worse than it
It's
is
worse.
in Canada. But there's so much of that out there. And why is that? Is it because these people are all big overeaters and they don't exercise enough? Well, that's part of it, obviously. But the other part is the food they're eating
Mhm.
is completely non-nutritional. There's no nutritional value in the food they're eating, right? There's no protein, there's no vitamins hardly. They're not taking vitamin supplements. And if they are, most of it is filler material,
Mhm.
depending on what brand you're
Mhm.
using. So, it's really, really hard. You have to look hard. And somebody said to me the other day, hey, if there's a health food section in your grocery store,
Mhm.
what does that say for the rest of the stuff in there?
It's the non-health food. Yeah. I mean,
Right?
years ago, I don't eat a lot of processed food, and I grew up eating Indian food, obviously. And I'm only realizing now how good that was for me. Turmeric and, like all the, I don't know, whatever my mom made in all her food. She always cooked fresh food, like lentils or whatever, every day. And so I never ate, to me, craft dinner was not food.
No, it's
Like
not food.
but like that, because I didn't grow up like that, but I wanted to have craft dinner, and I remember buying a package when I was like 10 and cooking it, and I was like, "Whoa, what?" But you eat that kind of food, and yeah, obviously it's cheap, it's not good for you, it's processed. But I remember going to Jack in the Box with my family like years ago, and I think I felt like I ordered 15 burgers, or I ordered so much food from Jack in the Box, and when it was time to pay, it was like, "Oh, that'll be $12." I was like, "What? $12? I just bought
Oh,
all these burgers for $12, so it's also cheap."
yeah.
But yeah. So
Well, that's
I'm
how
with
they
you
get
on.
it in you, right? But ultimately, I mean, and I've had some health food experts on my show as well over the past
Mhm.
years. And they say if you're going to have a box of KD or any of that stuff you get at the fast foods, I mean, you may as well just be pouring molten plastic into your body.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like that
Yeah.
that's exactly the effect. There's absolutely no nutritional value, and it's all
You
designed
look at the
to
color,
make
the
you
coloring in
well,
it. Yeah. But okay,
orange.
so
It's
yeah,
gross, but it's designed to keep you coming
orange
back,
bad. Yeah, yeah.
right?
I always
Orange
say orange
bad.
man. I always, they
So
say orange
anyway,
man bad for Trump. I
well,
always say orange bad for David Eby because he's NDP. But getting back to Trump, he's got RFK on his side. Obviously,
right.
Tulsi Gabbard went
Mhm.
on his side. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I think is sharp as a tack. I think he's
Yep.
a really smart guy. And JD Vance, very,
Yep.
very smart. I like that team. Okay.
You forgot
So
Elon Musk. Don't forget
and
Elon.
Elon Musk, Rogan is on his side. The Dana White is on his side. I mean, and who does Kamala have on her side? She had celebrities crying. She had Mark Hamill, Sarah Jessica Parker, the Swifties, Schwarzenegger sitting down with John Podesta advocating or promoting Kamala Harris. And you think these Hollywood types like Ben Stiller and all of them, I mean, maybe they have a fan base, but nowadays people laugh in the face of them. They're a joke. They couldn't even do it for her. Friggin' Oprah and the Obamas. What did you think of that? That endorsement wasn't enough to tip the scale for her. What do you think of that?
I think that when you've got somebody like Jennifer Lopez, who used to date Diddy, coming out and
Sorry.
asking you to trust her judgment, then you've got an issue. Look, I think people are fed up with hollow celebrity endorsements. And we've seen so many of those because when you ask them why they're supporting her, there's never really a clear answer. They never could name any of
No.
her policies. I mean, she couldn't name any of her policies. It's
No,
just that we're never going back, right?
she didn't know. So that brings us to the Canadian media, how we thought
Right.
the Canadian media cover things. And I'm glad you brought up her policy, because the one big policy that I could only that was more prevalent than anything was a woman's right to choose. Of course, you can't choose what medical intervention you take, but you can certainly choose whether you take You know what I'm saying, right? Like what it's now it's a choice. It's your body, your choice. It's actually not your body when it comes to abortion. There's other factors. What about the dad? Does a dad have no rights? The reason I say that is I could tell another story, but whatever. But I don't know.
You
Should
don't
I
want to
just
go there?
I don't know. Somebody I know close in our family was gonna have a baby, and she was older. It was time to have the baby, but she's like, "No, I don't want to have this baby now. I'm gonna go back to school." We're like, "You're friggin' almost 40. Have the baby. You're married, and the husband wanted the baby." And wh- I don't even want to get into it, but like he has no rights. So he has no rights? I thought that was ridiculous. And so she could
Yeah.
choose to end the pregnancy. What about his feelings? What about the life that's inside you? Anyway, I go on. But this IVF, vasectomy, abortion, Kamala Harris got a lot of support for that. So I'm going to just bring us to, I'm going to play this clip. This is from Global National. This, all these people I know and I work with. So it's hilarious to me, but let's just watch a little bit of students from this is Howard University. This is Kamala Harris's alma mater.
Kamala Harris in these last few days has not mentioned her opponent Donald Trump by name. She is painting a very different picture between her agenda of focusing on the American people and his, which she says would be focused on a list of enemies. We heard from some students here at Howard University earlier today on why they support Kamala Harris. Take a listen.
There was a lot of racism was very rampant, very open. People don't really care about what they had to say, especially in the South. So I would say I'm not really ready to go back to that.
The situation in Gaza, I think she definitely could have handled better, but I do believe she is still the best candidate.
I voted for her specifically because I think that she represents huge change that's happening in America. She cares about people who look like me. She has policies in place for people who look like me.
I'm voting for her, and my specific reasoning was really for reproductive rights. So that's really important to me, especially from being from Kentucky. We don't have reproductive rights. That was all taken.
You might be able to hear the crowd cheering behind me as Howard University's president makes some remarks. A lot we don't know, but one thing is for sure, the excitement here is palpable. Donna?
You know what? Sorry, two things. There's no excitement there. There's nobody in the background. She should have stood behind where the crowd is. She's like, you can hear people cheering. No, we can't hear shit, Neetu. But anyway, also, and so what did you make of that? The people saying women's rights, women's rights. Oh, sorry. And one other thing. Kamala Harris didn't even come out and speak to the people that gathered for her at Howard University. She sent someone else out. What do you think of all that?
Her campaign co-chair came out and said she'll not be speaking tonight because there's a lot of votes left to count. And the left-wing corporate media did not call the election last night. Most of them, Fox News, I think, did around 2:00 in the morning, and then Trump came out and gave his acceptance speech. And Kamala, like I said, did not speak last night. Like you said, I'm sorry. And she finally called Trump a couple of hours ago and conceded the election.
Oh, good for her. But that was awful to not come out. And in that clip, there's a girl there going, she cares about people that look like me. No, she doesn't.
No, Kamala Harris.
If she cared about you, she would have come out and said, thank you for your support. Go ahead.
She was a construct of the Democratic Party, of whoever is running the show there, whether it's Nancy Pelosi combined with the Obamas and the Clintons. I don't know exactly who's behind that machine, but Kamala Harris is not who they made her out to be. And of course, we saw that over the last 3 or 4 months in the campaigning, where she could not answer a question without script. She was not genuine. She did not connect with the people in the way that Donald Trump did.
She didn't understand.
She
couldn't have the concept of what she was talking about. She doesn't understand policy. She couldn't come up with an answer and talk off the top of her head because A, she had to stop and think, what am I supposed to say here? And B, she doesn't know. She doesn't know how to fix the problems. She doesn't know anything about
how can that be? I mean, somebody who has been in a position of political responsibility now for what, 8, 10 years? I mean, she was the Attorney General of California for a time. She was a senator. She apparently the furthest left-leaning senator in history, even further left than Bernie Sanders. Then she becomes the vice president. So you would think that over all of that time in politics, she would have learned how to be able to think on her feet
Yeah.
and just basically recite policy, not talking points, but policy. And she
Policy,
was unable
exactly.
to do that.
No,
Um,
she's the great example of, I guess, falling upwards or whatever. You couldn't possibly, you fall upwards, or what is it? You fail upwards or whatever it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
DEI. I mean, we're looking at somebody who was chosen for this role in the last
Mhm.
few months. And when Biden, when we all discovered the guy we knew long before the left-wing corporate media was willing to announce it, that he had some kind of mental difficulties. And that was obvious going back
Yeah.
probably to the beginning of his presidency, right? But they covered that up, or tried to cover it up, for as long as they possibly could. And during that debate with Trump, it became clearly obvious to the country that he couldn't run
Yeah.
in any kind of
So
election.
that's why
So
they put her in, because how can you get rid of a woman of color, and a woman? I mean, you can't. Remember, they were saying, "Go shove in Gavin Newsom, put all these other people in there," but they had to go with her, and come hell or high water, they were going to make it work. So that's a little clip of people from Howard University. I also want to show a little bit of my old stomping grounds, a little bit of what Donna Friesen had to say, who, I don't know, out of touch.
And I think the pre-election polling kind of, painted that picture, a picture of a population that was in angst, that was suffering, was having problems making ends meet, and a population that really believes the system is broken.
Well, and is part of that also because that has been Donald Trump's campaign message for 471 days, right? That this country is broken, that it's never been this bad before, that inflation is through the roof, that crime is up. A lot of things that frankly aren't true. Inflation has come down. Crime is not the worst it's ever been. A lot of things he said that simply aren't true, but people have taken them as gospel.
But people really are suffering. People really are having problems making ends meet. The cost of living is high, and there's certain segments like less affluent Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and younger Americans that really are still having problems making their household finances work.
Is she clueless?
Anita, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not
Donna
clueless.
just said the crime is not up and inflation is not up. And
Right.
when you're sitting in your ivory tower, and I know Donna, I know her.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me ask you, how much money does Donna Friesen make? She's the national anchor for Global, right?
Yeah.
So how
Global
much do you
national
think that,
anchor. Chief
yeah,
anchor.
like what is she, like 750 grand?
I think so. Something like that.
Okay. So if she's making
I don't know
750,
though for sure. Yeah.
no, I know, but like this is a
Yeah.
guess, and I'm thinking that I know Toronto radio morning show hosts who are making that, right?
I know. I couldn't believe it. Even at CKNW, Philip Till and John McComb, they were making a lot of money, while the producers, they'd hire them out of TV school,
Yeah.
BCIT or radio school, and pay them. You could work at Subway and make sandwiches and make more.
Well, you probably had to actually do both at the same time in order to afford a one-bedroom apartment or a studio apartment in Vancouver. But let's say that
Okay.
Donna makes 750,000 or maybe even $1 million a year. Let's just throw that out there. Somebody making that kind of money would not be able to understand the crunch that regular Americans and Canadians are
Mhm.
feeling right now at the grocery store, on the street. She never ever has to go on a bus. She never ever, she probably sent people out and get groceries for her. She doesn't have to do any of the daily things that average Canadians have to do. So she's going strictly from statistics. And statistics, as we all know, can be skewed. We know from the past 4 or 5 years that statistics can be and have been skewed or completely and totally altered in order to fit a narrative, right? So
Mhm.
when you go out to the grocery store and you see that you have to spend $7 on a dozen eggs, or a package of spinach is going to cost you $8, or a jar of peanut butter is going to cost you $9, you know that there's something wrong. When you see tent cities in every major metropolitan city in this country, when you
Mhm.
see the problem that's going on in downtown Vancouver right now, that Hastings area,
Mhm.
that area has expanded in
Mhm.
the
It's got
last
worse.
few years.
Mhm.
way worse. You see people walking around like zombies
Yeah, everybody's
in the
bent
streets.
over, and it's happening all over, like in Abbotsford and other places where it wasn't happening. Go ahead, finish your
And
point. Like,
so of course she's out of touch. She has absolutely zero idea
well, the
what's
news
really
people are
going
not
on.
supposed to be out of touch. That's why she gets paid $1 million, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
She may now, like, because I had worked with these anchors for so long, I do see them as normal people. So she might, maybe she does go grocery shopping. I don't know. She's got a kid who's probably older now. She's been remarried. I think she married another rich guy. She's not hurting for money. So that $9 gallon of milk or $7 carton of eggs does not hurt her pocketbook as it does for people who make 20 something an hour. It's because then you
Right.
cannot buy the eggs. You
So let
will
me
not
ask you
have
this.
eggs. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You got people like Donna Friesen
Yeah.
and whoever else, all of these talking heads, these lead anchors for all of the
Yeah.
networks across the country. Um, do they actually, because you spent all this time in TV. I mean, I
Yeah.
spent most of my time in radio,
Yeah.
and I can tell you the last 3 years of my radio career, I spent in a very woke newsroom. It was very woke.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't even believe how bad it was. To the point where there would be three of us, and these are the three journalists from the newsroom who had been doing it longer than 20 years. And so we knew better than what they were talking about. We'd be standing on one side of the room and they'd be all commiserating all the wokes on the other side of the room. And we're going, oh my God, this is no good. But it was 2018 and we didn't know all of this was going to go down the way it
Mhm.
has. Right. It just seemed strange to us that these new people coming up had this attitude that they were better
Mhm.
than everybody. And um, because they did. I mean, that's how they came across.
Mm.
And so TV to me,
Mhm.
I didn't really have too much time in TV. I can tell you that the woke radio journalists absolutely believed, most of them absolutely believed the crap they were shoveling.
Mhm.
Some of the veterans who were shoveling that crap knew it was crap, but they did it because they needed to
Mhm.
pay the bills.
Some don't know, but some do know what they're
So,
doing.
in your
Yeah.
experience, like what percentage of these people, excuse me, actually believe the crap that they're spewing on TV? Because to me, it look from that clip that you showed, it looks like Donna Friesen actually believes this nonsense.
Oh, that's such a good question. The
I mean,
reporter that
if you
I
were to throw out euphemisms like Hitler and Mussolini in
yeah.
reference to Donald Trump, I mean, to me, that is absolutely abominable.
Yeah. Although
He is
although I
none of those things.
although I never heard Donna say that. I'm gonna play somebody else later who did say that. I never heard her say that. I would say there's about I would say 15% actually believe, and I think the other people are just towing the line for the paycheck. They know that something is up. They know that something is up. The girl that I played for you before Howard University, I had a conversation, very gorgeous young reporter. I talked to her in the kitchen one day at work during the pandemic, and I was like, a lot of people are, what can I say, are getting sick and blah blah blah. And she agreed. She talked about menstrual problems with people she knew, and then she said something so stupid after. She just said, I don't even know if I can say this on YouTube, but she goes, well, if I die, I die. If it's my time to die, it's my time to die. But you want to die
Conversation
for
like that
this?
with a guy today. I had a conversation with a guy just this morning
Uh-huh.
as I was leaving the building, going
Yeah.
out to do some errands, and the guy stopped me. Hey, Shadoe, watch your show all the time. I said, hey, great, that's cool. I was
Yeah.
on. He wanted to talk, so he actually said that very same thing to me. I'm in my 50s now, so if I die, I die. Whatever. It was like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, but for the thing, for this thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How stupid are you? What a stupid thing to say. And she knows. I mean, she must know now. I don't know what these people are thinking, because an anchor that I used to work with, he's the star anchor. I just saw him on Twitter and he posted something about Yuval Noah Harari. Um,
Mm.
and he goes, well, this kind of makes sense, but he's also kind of dumb. He's a little bit less than smart. So part of me is like, do you know what you actually posted? Do you understand? Do you understand what you are a part of? I feel like a lot of people at Global did not understand and they refused to look, but now they should know. But how dense do you have to be to retweet something from Yuval Harari? Huh?
Well, Yuval Harari is one of Klaus Schwab's right-hand men.
Yeah.
And if he was posting something from Yuval Harari as a positive thing,
He has a
then
positive.
then this guy is completely and totally out to lunch. He has no idea. I mean, this
Either
guy.
you're in on it or you're too stupid. But I think it's the latter with that one.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he's clueless. He used to argue with me all the time about medications and things like that. Yeah. So, but
But
you know,
why do
these
they act the
people,
way they do? I mean, like
yeah.
this whole superior thing, right? Like
Oh,
when
I'm really tired of that. That's why I like podcasts. You know, like that goes back to Barbara Walters acting holier than thou when she interviews people that maybe got in trouble for some sexual impropriety or something like that. Like she's never, never made any mistakes or anything like that. I don't like this. I don't like this arrogance where they hold their pen and they're like, I'm asking the questions. No, I'm granting you an interview. So show me some respect. I think at least with podcasting that becomes more conversational and that wall goes down, that wall of judgment. But so I think that that's good, but we still need our reporters to hold people to account and not let them go, right? So the media, I would just say that the media failed. They have been failing us and they showed that they failed because the machine wanted Trump to lose. The machine wants certain people to lose, but it was too big, right? And so now people don't, you know what I mean? The media tide has completely turned. Everybody
this is
can see now.
Yeah, this is why I call them the left-wing corporate media, and in some cases, the Marxist corporate media. And I've had, I'm not sure if you're still friends with anybody who works at Global, your
They won't,
former
I think I'm
place.
persona non grata. They won't talk to me,
I've
including
been the
like
same.
people who are my close friends.
Yeah, well, were or claimed to be at the time, but I have stayed in touch with just a couple of people, and one guy I bumped into a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Dude, how on earth?" He goes, my kids are almost in college. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say."
Well,
And I said, "Okay, well, I guess you're going to be the one who has to look in the mirror. Really,
yeah,
you know."
yeah.
I had a guy on.
They don't care.
JP
They're getting the paycheck.
No, they do care. This is the thing, right?
Yeah.
They care, but they can't because they need the money.
They need them.
Jason
I know.
Jason Christoff, I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's a mind control expert. He's an expert at propaganda. I had him on my show the other night, and we talked about this very thing, where these people are doing the thing they're doing completely and totally against every fiber of their being because they need to make ends meet. And we look at a report that came out just yesterday that shows us that medical professionals, their level of, is at the lowest it's been since the mandates 3 years ago. And the reason is because they're scared of it. First of all, they don't want to take it, and they don't think it works. But because now they're not mandated to take it, they don't take it.
Mm-hmm.
These are the very same people who 3 years ago were vilifying people who didn't take it.
Yes, they were.
As criminals. And now they're not doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So you're right. The tide is turning, but it's a mind control thing that your body, like everything is telling you, you can't do this, but you have to, because this priority is slightly higher than this priority. Right. So when we talk about somebody who says, well, I'm in my 50s, I don't care if I die now. My family is more important to me. That means keeping a roof over their heads and food in their bellies. And that's what they're willing to do. And they don't want to think about it. Have you had a conversation with somebody or tried to have a conversation with somebody about this very thing, and they just don't want to talk about it? They'll turn around, they'll walk away.
Yeah.
They might call you a conspiracy theorist before they do it, or they'll just change the subject altogether.
Yeah.
They do not want to talk about it.
They can't accept that they're a part of something so bad. You are, by you pushing something, you are a part of something so bad that you don't understand. And now that all this has come up now, they double down. They double down. And
So
they call me names. One editor I worked with, he's just like, I hope you get all the attention you're so desperately seeking. I'm not seeking attention. I don't need attention. I don't want attention. That's
they
not
have
what
they
this is
have a
about.
completely and totally perverse way of looking at the reason
Yeah,
that you and people like us have done what we're doing. I
yeah.
mean,
I mean,
personally, I
yeah,
never thought to myself that I would ever be doing this. Right.
me
When
neither.
I started my show 4 years ago, Anita, I wanted it to be kind of like a fun entertainment interview talk show, kind
Yeah,
of like Rogan was doing beforehand, before all this nonsense. And it turned into a truther show. Let's be
yeah,
honest. I mean, if you want to call it truther, and they
yeah.
use that expression now as a negative, kind of a far right thing. But like, what's wrong with being a truther? I want the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. Never thought I would ever have to go through this
No.
ridicule, this constant cancellation and censorship and all of
Oh,
this stuff. Never
yeah,
thought. And to go through all of this stuff, and
yeah,
still here we are, still doing this after all this time. Well, those
yeah.
other people, they're coasting through, right?
Oh, I would love to see any reporter I work with go start a podcast and try and get subscriptions and try to get your YouTube hours up. Meanwhile, censorship is against you. Everywhere you turn, something is against you to make a living at this. Go and start one. You 2-bit good for nothing reporters. Go see how you survive. They
But
know they can't survive because they get the chorus paycheck. And
but
now
let
that
me
Chorus is
let,
doing
let,
so badly, we'll see
yeah,
how long that lasts. But they're
let
gonna
me
ride
ask
it out.
let
They're
me
gonna
ask
ride
you
it
then,
out.
what
Mm,
is the reason that you do this? It's not for attention.
no,
So why is it?
I have a job. Like, I was a friggin' director, and after I got fired because I have a mortgage to pay and 2 kids to support, I got a job. And I wanted to get a simple job where I didn't have to think so much, so I worked in offices, I worked at medical clinics. I manage a medical clinic right now, and that's what I do to pay my mortgage. I do this on the side because it is a labor of love for me. I cannot stop but help myself when something happens in the news and I want to talk about it and bring somebody the story because that part is in my blood, even though I was a director for a long time, right?
You feel
I
like
couldn't
you
stop
have
even if
to.
I wanted to.
You haven't got a choice, right?
No,
Because you could not sleep at night knowing that you had this information that you didn't get it out to as many people as you
mm-mm,
possibly could. I am
absolutely
the
not.
exact same way. That's
Yeah,
my motivation as well, every single night,
yeah.
right?
I
And
can't
that
fake it, man. I can't
I
fake it when I see people got hurt so bad and I talk to these people every day.
yeah.
I
And
can't put
so
my head in the sand.
what we've got now are a bunch of people who are injured in some way. And this doesn't matter on what side of whatever division that you're on these days. There are people out there who are feeling lonely and desperate. And when we provide them with an hour here and there, my show goes at 8 o'clock Central every night. And hundreds, thousands of people on all these different platforms, they get together. They go to their favorite platform because that's where they know people, right? So there's people who Rumble and there's YouTube and
Mhm.
Facebook and X, and they all get together and they all talk amongst themselves while I'm doing my show.
Yeah.
And that provides them with comfort. These are people who have created friendships and bonds across a vast area, right? Somebody in Red Deer, Alberta has made friends with somebody in Barrie,
Yeah.
Ontario because of what we're doing here, right? And that's not a small thing if we're providing people comfort and truth at the same time, doing our best
Yeah.
to get this
I'm doi
information out.
We're doing our best with nothing. No budget, no newsroom, no editor. We don't have anybody making thumbnails. Like, there's a lot of work
Right?
that goes into it, even though it seems like there isn't. I just
And
noticed all the
starving our way
comments
through it too.
here.
Like we're
Yeah.
starving our way through it as well. It's not like we're
No, we don't
breaking
get
the bank
rich.
here.
Why do you think I have a job, right? It's 'cause that's
Hey,
how I've
there's
been good
Vilma.
at
There's
this.
Vilma. That's okay, cool. What does Vilma have to say here? She's one of my regulars.
It's so small I can't read it. I don't have my.
It says, okay, leave it up on the screen. The tables are
Oh, the
turning.
tables are turning. Good. I
Yeah.
still pray God takes the scales off everybody's eye and the pharmaceutical and the government are held accountable. Okay.
Crimes
Yeah.
against humanity.
Well,
Yeah. You know,
and one person said that long form podcasts are the future of media now. Isn't it funny how people can consume these long form podcasts? Like I put on a podcast and then clean my house. They make
right.
my house clean, you know? So, but anyway, back to what we were talking about. I just want to get back to it. How do you feel? I wonder how people in the comments also feel about how the Canadian media is doing with coverage in general, but I guess particularly last night. I mean, they've always been so Trump biased. They've always had TDS. But last night, oh my gosh, Catherine Tate, the head of the CBC, who keeps getting all those bonuses, that redheaded woman that looks like a Ronald McDonald's mother or whatever. She, oh, I don't have right.
Good.
She
That's
looks
good.
like Ronald McDonald's mother.
And arrogant too, right? She's arrogant. She talks down her nose to people.
I
Those
know, she's
committees
like,
are just
CBC
terrible.
Radio Canada, we provide
Oh,
this and that for sports. What do you do? Nobody is watching you. How do you get a bonus when you perform so badly? You've performed badly, you don't get a bonus, but they get millions, these executives, and their bonuses. But just recently, she got in trouble for something, an ethics violation or something, and she had to
yeah.
pay $200 fine.
Yeah. Well,
I had to
slap on
pay
the wrist.
$500 to take my cat to the vet the other day. She got a $200 fine. I wish I never took her to the vet because she's fine now. But anyway,
I think the difference between Canadian and American media and the way they've approached this whole thing is very much the same as it is the difference between Canadians and Americans. We are far less outspoken than they are, and we're polite, as known across the world. Oh, Canadians, they're so polite and they'll always apologize even if they didn't do anything. So when we watch those clips, that one clip that you played from Donna Friesen, and then the one you're about to play, we see a lower key version of what's going on in the American media. I mean, Morning Joe this morning on MSNBC was absolutely hilarious. I mean, I thought it was an SNL thing.
they are hilarious. Yeah.
They're crazy, right? I mean, I can't believe he said this, he said that. Now they're taking things he said out of context in regards to the Liz Cheney thing and shoot her in the face and all that. He never said that, right? He said she's a war hawk. How would she like it? Basically, is what he meant. How would she like it if she was sitting there with 10 guns pointed in her face as she sends young men out to die in unnecessary wars? Right. That's the point he was making. But CNN, MSNBC, and all of these other woke networks were saying, well, Trump wants to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. Absolutely wrong. Right. But the bluster and the lying and the hyperbole that was going on in the American media was absolutely ridiculous, over the top, to the point, like I was saying, where I thought it was an SNL sketch. In Canada, they're much more subdued and low key about it. Right.
Yeah, we are more subdued, about it.
They're still lying.
But that's what
right?
makes it more insidious. I love this comment here. Well, no, last night was brutal. Just refused to call it until it was impossible to deny it any longer. Right? Too big to rig. Right? Too big to rig. But let's go and talk. Okay, since we're on to the CBC, I really hope when Pierre gets in, that he really will defund this thing. You know what? If they want their viewers, CBC, go and do whatever the hell we all have to do. Go get subscriptions, okay?
Well, before you play this clip,
you can subscribe to it.
Before you play this clip, let me just say, I'm not sure if you ever saw this clip. It was from the Calgary Stampede in July. Pierre was there. And he was doing an address to the crowd. And I think maybe he'd had a couple of drinks. It looked like he'd been, feeling a little bit good. And he said, the first thing, Pierre sounds like that. The first thing we're going to do on day one of a Pierre Poilievre government is defund the CBC. And then he said, it'll be the best day of my life. He said, so I'm thinking, okay, if that's what he's planning to do, I don't think there's going to be any stopping him from doing it, regardless of what percentage of Canadians the CBC says
Well, he
want
said
them
it
to
so
remain.
much. He's been saying it for over a year and a half now.
Yeah.
I hope that he actually does it. I hope he doesn't come back and it's like, oh, sorry, well, we couldn't because of this rule or that rule. Change it up and defund them. And global news, CTV is actually horrible too, right? Vashi Capellos, everybody sort
I
of
want
kisses
to
her
ask
ass.
you about Vashi
Wait.
Capellos.
Just one
Go
sec.
ahead.
Yeah, Vashi Capellos, everybody kisses her ass because she takes people to task. But oh, she's so tough. Where was she during the time when we needed her? And she never called out her own. Like I called out my own and I got in trouble for it, right? Come on, Vashi. You can go start a YouTube channel. Let's see how well you do. She never called out her own company when they did that bad edit on Pierre, right? Like, how come you didn't talk about that? Your own vice president was in a friggin' hearing and had to answer for it, and he didn't even talk to the people involved in it. Why didn't you call them out? You're so quick to call out everybody else. And the other day, she did a horrible interview with Danielle Smith, because Danielle Smith is like, we don't want people to have these gender surgeries. You know, we're not really into this for minors. You have to be over 18. And Vashi just looked at her like, what are you, crazy? It was like actually a disgusting interview. So Vashi, I'm not impressed with you. I'm not impressed with you, Mrs. I'm so tough. You're so tough when it suits you. But give me a break. Anyway, I was not impressed with her. But let's look at CBC and this ridiculous woman. Actually, she's not a broadcaster. She's some sort of Democratic strategist. So I don't take what she says too seriously. But this is appalling what she says. Good luck with us if we say this. We get our channels pulled.
So let's talk about exactly the question that you're asking is one that I've been catching a lot of heat for answering on air. And we've been talking about this in the last week or two. You're talking about the propaganda campaign and the playbook of Trump. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is directly out of Hitler's playbook. This is out of an autocrat playbook. This is a way to, I mean, the things that Trump has done masterfully, frankly, is to get the entire, to get a big part of the population to believe that the game is rigged and to sow distrust in public institutions and the free press. And so it's actually quite simple. When you tell a big enough lie over and over and over, people are going to believe it. Even when folks around him, like Rudy Giuliani and others, have literally been found liable for telling those lies that weren't true. The public still believes it. And the whole goal was to erode trust in our public institutions. And it's working.
What a crazy.
What is she even talking about? What even is that?
Oh, she's just like, oh, they're lying because it's going to erode trust, and they're lying. And if you tell a lie long enough and big enough, then people are going to believe it. Hey, check yourself, woman. Check yourself.
That's what the liberals have been doing for the last 9 years. I mean, who's the former climate minister? What's her name? I forget her name. They called her Climate Barbie.
Oh,
remember?
I don't know.
Catherine McKenna.
Oh,
She was, so they caught her on tape in Newfoundland. And she was kissing the cod or whatever the heck it is they do. She was drinking some Everclear. And they caught her on tape saying, if you tell a lie long enough and loud enough, it becomes the truth.
Yep.
And that is an old school political, that's on page 1 of the Lying Politician Handbook. And I find it appalling that they would allow that kind of language, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I got to be careful about what I say, because I don't want any sort of censorship.
Yeah.
On any platforms or networks at all.
That's true. I'm a free speech absolutist. You say whatever you want. You can say, I don't like little Indian women that are 5'2". You can say that about me. That's what I am. I don't care. What do I care?
Right.
You want to say that? You can start a channel saying, I don't like you, Anita. I don't give a shit. I don't care, right? You have the right. Well, I don't know. You have the right to say what you have to say. So I am an absolutist. So that's true. But what we're a bit resentful because we cannot say things, or we get demonetized and deplatformed. I can't speak freely sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
the playing field is not even at all. It's certainly not even, and it needs.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's not even. I wanted to show some of the comments because I never go live. This guy says, unburdened by what has been. uh, Somebody's saying here, hi, good afternoon, Kevin in Calgary. Oh, okay. Well, and then, oh,
Kevin moves
Montel.
around a lot. He's one of these guys. He's in Calgary sometimes. He's in St. John, New Brunswick. Other times
Oh,
he's up
you
in
know
Yellowknife. He
him.
travels a lot. Well, he's a regular on my show. Yeah. Hey,
Oh,
Kevin.
it's funny because he says your Montel Williams side chick didn't win, and that's funny because she dated Montel Williams, which when she was hot, back when she was hot or
I
whatever.
thought it was Willie Brown. Wasn't it Willie Brown? He was the mayor of San Francisco. She
Willie
was his side
Brown
piece.
was, I think, 40 years older than her when she
Yeah.
started to get with him, and he was very influential and he helped promote her. So that kind of helped her falling upwards and sort of set her on this political career. So that was quite the connection. That was total.
Have
That's
you
pretty
seen
bad, eh?
some of the stuff that Candace Owens has been doing on her? Like
No, I
she's
haven't
been
been
chasing.
watching Candace lately.
Oh, you
Yeah.
gotta watch that. She's been chasing Kamala's family tree, and it looks
Oh, yeah,
like
the
it's all been a
grandma thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
did
been a
see
big
that.
lie.
Yeah,
What does
yeah.
Linda have to say here?
I've
I've
seen
seen
nothing of
nothing.
MSM today or on social media has been crazy enough. I shut it down for quite a while. Uh, Pierre wasn't very nice to Trump in his comments in Parliament today. Made me wonder. Okay, I don't know. I didn't see that, but there is some question that maybe Canada will have tariffs. That Trump will introduce tariffs. I think tariffs are great. You got to make. Oh, tariffs are great. I don't know. I understand him wanting to make money. That's maybe it's incentive for Canada to raise up its own industry, cultivate your own industry, right?
Oh,
We need to make money and use our resources in Canada. And as
yeah.
you know,
One of the first things we have to do is bring our industry back from
yeah,
wherever it's gone the past 10 years and make them call Canada home again.
and
But
stop
I
hog
think,
tying businesses. Let the mining industry flourish. Let the
yeah,
gas industry flourish. Let the lumber industry flourish. Let the farmers flourish. Don't
yeah.
don't like hog tie them or whatever.
Well,
We don't want that.
that's part of the UN globalist agenda. That's part of, the 15-minute cities, all of that stuff. I mean, and that's a whole different conversation. But I think what Pierre may have been doing today, and this is just a personal opinion of mine. I think I mentioned this on my show the other night. So Trudeau, some school of thought out there suggests that Trudeau, why hasn't he prorogued Parliament? Not his entire caucus, but a good portion of his caucus wants him
Mhm.
to step down as leader of the party. He has not. He hasn't prorogued Parliament yet because somehow the NDP is still supporting them, even though Jagmeet Singh says he ripped up that confidence agreement
Yeah, yeah.
a couple of months ago. Whatever, right? So now the Bloc wants to get rid of Trudeau. We know the Conservatives want to bring down this government. So what's he been waiting for? The people of Canada cannot stand him. He must have seen the polls. I mean, they're so far down in the polls that it's ridiculous,
Yeah, but if you
right?
were Trudeau, you wouldn't call an election. He knows he's going to lose. He knows he cannot curry public favor right
But
now.
it's inevitable. It's inevitable. So what's he
No,
doing? Is it
it is,
what?
but
No,
he wants
what?
to string it out. He doesn't have the
Let,
courage.
let me finish this because
Yeah.
this is an interesting point. So he thinks, what can I do to come back in the polls, knowing that he's 20 points down at least? He needs a boogeyman, and he hasn't got one right now. He's trying to make Polyev a boogeyman, but he's not, right? It's not
Yeah.
sticking. He knows that in a recent poll or a couple of recent polls, 65 or 70% of Canadians would have voted for Kamala Harris if they could have. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but he sees that and he goes, all right. So if Trump wins this election, I will campaign against Trump for the next year while I'm still allowed to be in office because he does have another year, right? And then I will tie Polyev to Trump to make him Trump North, right? So all of the things, all of the bad stuff that Polyev does, he's going to make it seem like he's Donald Trump North. And that's how he thinks, Trudeau, he's going to win this election. So maybe when Polyev stood up today in the House of Commons during question period and wasn't very nice to Donald Trump, and I haven't seen that clip yet, it's because he's trying to distance himself now from Donald Trump so that it makes it more difficult for the Liberals to tie him to Trump.
Oh, that's a
Maybe.
very, very interesting strategy. That could be, you could be onto something there because Trudeau does have till 2025 to keep campaigning, and he doesn't have the boogeyman. So if you lump Polyev and Trump together as the dynamic duo that we need to stand against because they're going to ruin the economy of Canada, although who's going to buy that? You can't ruin it more than Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland have already done. Then maybe that could be his new enemy. You're right. And that could be a strategy. And maybe Pierre is kind of like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. I'm my own
Well,
person.
especially if you bring women's reproductive rights into it, right? And which is what they have been trying to do. Let's be honest. The liberals have been trying to bring this in, even though there's absolutely zero law about abortion
Yeah.
in Canada anywhere at all,
Can you not?
right?
You can still get an abortion, and we need to have a big dialogue about abortion too. That's a whole other show. I feel like I could do that show because I'm a woman and I'm in my 50s, and I can talk about like how to not get pregnant, right? It's not that hard, right?
Well, I think I can answer that one too.
Come on. What do you do? How do you stop getting knocked up when you're 20 years old, for God's sake, with some guy you met at the bar? Come on. You can do
Well, we
better
bring
than
God
that.
back into our lives, right? We bring God back into our lives, and maybe we exercise a little bit of self-control. Now, I can't,
Yeah, true.
I can't speak for from my own experiences because I was pretty wild when I was in my 20s. So, I was a radio star, rock radio star in my hometown when I was
Yeah.
23 or 24 years old. So, yeah, I did some things. But,
Mhm,
you learn as you grow, and
mhm, mhm.
and
Yeah, I don't mean be a nun. I mean,
right,
like, you can still, you want to get your groove on, get your groove on, but you
just
can
be
avoid
careful,
getting
right?
pregnant. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me
You
ask
know,
you a question.
oh, okay.
Because this is, if you want to stay on the reproductive rights thing here for 1 second, and I know we've been
Okay.
kind of all over the place,
We've
but
been
this is
all
an
over the
interesting
place. Yeah.
question.
Folks, I
I've
said this was gonna be a half an hour little good debrief, but when you
Did you
get
really?
talking to you, it's too fun. It's like morning
I
radio.
know, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It is actually. So here's the thing. I know a lot of women. I've had a lot of women in my life over the years, friends, women that I've been in relationships with, and when you get close to somebody, obviously secrets come out, and um, many of them admitted to me at one point in our relationship that they had had an abortion.
Mhm.
Like it was something they had to get off their chest. And so I was non-judgmental about it. I would just say, oh, well, and now at that point, when a woman that you're dating tells you that, as a man,
Mhm.
you should pretty much just sit there and shut up and listen. That's just
Mhm.
a little hint that I want to throw out there. But what
Yeah.
what I can say is
Mhm.
that not one of these women was good with it, right? It
Yeah.
seemed like they regretted doing that,
Yeah.
understanding that at that time of their lives, maybe there's no way that they could have managed it. They're 19 years old or
Mhm.
21 years old, just getting their
Mhm.
lives started, and this
Mhm.
happens to them, and so they felt like they had to go for an abortion. I wouldn't say to them this, but I would say to a young person today, consider adoption, right? Because there's all kinds of really good people out there that cannot have kids that would
Mhm.
love to. But aside from that, um, they always seem to have heavy regrets,
Yeah, heavy.
and in
Heavy.
some cases, I mean, this affects them 30 years down the road mentally.
Yes, it does. I know women like that too. Yeah. You never you live, it haunts you for your whole life. You are haunted by what you did. You never forget it. I've never had one, but I've only been pregnant twice, and that's because on purpose, and I have 2 sons. So I don't know how so I really should do a show on that, right?
Well,
Like
it's
I never
interesting,
had.
like you
Yeah.
you you could get a bunch of women, do a round table, and
Yeah.
a bunch of
Yeah.
women who've had that procedure, and get them to speak honestly about
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah, it haunts them. It saddens them. It's like it's not something that you're skipping in the streets proud of. Although some women, I do know some women that don't think of it like that. They just think of it as a procedure. They're not thinking really about human life and what
Well,
is
have you
to be.
seen some of
Yeah.
these Charlie Kirk things when he goes to university campuses and he starts talking to these liberal
Yes,
university people?
I have seen these young Libby type of women going, "Oh, well, I'm not voting for Trump because, I've already had 2 abortions and he's gonna take that away." And they're almost like talking about it like it's a it's like they removed a hangnail, which
It's a clump of
yeah,
cells. It's just a clump of cells.
yeah, which
And so
no,
you know
it's
what
not.
Charlie said back to them when they said, one of them said that, just a clump of cells. It's dependent upon, it's a parasite. You know what Charlie said back? He said, well, so are you.
So are you.
You're just a clump of cells.
So are you.
That's
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
are, right? I mean,
Exactly.
and so, you know, if somebody, and even Bill Burr, the comedian, was
I heard you
talking
did a good
about this.
bit on this. Yeah.
He had a great bit on it. He said, you know, like it's never been a big thing to me. It's like he's got that Boston thing going on. And he says, but I'll tell you this. I think about maybe making a cake. I'm going to make a cake. I get all the ingredients and I put this into the pan and I throw it in the oven. And then somebody comes along, opens the oven and takes the cake and throws it against the wall. And I say, hey, what are you doing? He said, well, you know, you just ruined my cake. Hey, I mean, well, it wasn't a cake yet.
It was not a cake yet. Yeah. Yeah,
It
honestly,
would have been.
it would have been. I've thought that my whole life. You plant a seed in the garden, it looks like nothing, but then it grows into whatever you've planted, right? And when with I have two sons, and then right away, like within 3 weeks, I was like, oh my god, I feel something. I feel something, and I kind of knew something right away.
When
So,
that baby starts kicking inside of you,
oh,
and you can actually feel it.
oh god. Yes, it's amazing. It's the most amazing, beautiful. I always wanted to be a mother, so I always cherish and have valued that. But I don't understand. I never saw it as a clump of cells. And even like within 6 weeks and stuff, they give you the little ultrasounds. You're like, oh my god, there's my little shrimpy kid. So like looks like a little shrimp, but then it grows into this beautiful thing. It's something to be valued and something to be cherished. So we really need to rethink and reprogram generations of women coming up who were told that, well, you can do what you want and it's your body and you can have an abortion and go get educated and go work 9 to 5 and go to, you know what? If I could just have another baby and stay home, I would right now. I would love to. Let
Yeah,
me make a phone call.
yeah,
I would.
how on earth do we even, like, here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
How on earth do we even bring this up and try and get it into the lexicon of Canadian conversation without being shut down as right-wing extremists?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, too late for that. I guess we already are, but it's a nice conversation to perhaps gently have with some
You know,
young
you've
girls.
got people praying in front of abortion clinics in the UK, silently standing there with their arms in front of them, silent praying, not even out loud. And they're
Yeah.
being arrested because they're in the zone,
Yeah.
right? They're in the prohibited zone. They're not allowed to be there. And they're getting arrested for what? Standing there? Are you kidding me? That's what's going on in our world today. And that needs to change. And I'm kind of hoping, Anita,
Yes.
that with the election of Donald Trump last night,
Yes.
those things are going to start swinging back down to the middle. We can get back to some kind of
I
common
think they
sense
will.
again.
I think they will,
I
because
hope
JD
so.
Vance talks about that a lot too. And he'll say, rather than just say, okay, get an abortion, let's talk about what we can do to help you with your pregnancy. I mean, my mom had my brother at 17. She got married, and that was stupid. I mean, not stupid, but that's too young. And then she had me at 20, and she did it, right? So maybe there are options. And abortion is not for me, but we never has been. But we need to rethink and re-educate. You know, I've never had a whoops. It's not like I haven't had boyfriends and all kinds, I've just never had a whoops. Because I'm always like, hey, like, I know
Oh, buddy.
we ain't doing this, right? So I don't know. But yeah. But anyway,
So
well, here we
that
are.
may change. I'm hoping that changes with the corporate media in the United States
I
and
hope,
in
yeah.
Canada. I mean, I'm hoping that, but this is a globalist machine we're talking about, and the media is just one arm of them.
Yeah.
I honestly don't believe that 80% of the people that are on media right now believe the crap they're doing. I believe they're only doing it for the paycheck. And sadly, they're letting themselves be used as useful idiots to get this weird ass far left Marxist message out to people. If we can get rid or at least tame the media, get them back to what they're supposed to be, things will start to change, understanding that they have far less impact on culture today than they did even 5 years ago. I think a new survey came out. Did you see this one? 31% of people in Canada actually trust the left-wing corporate media now. It used to be up before COVID. It was up in the high 50s or low 60s before COVID. And then now it's like 31%. People are getting their news from elsewhere, but Justin Trudeau wants to censor the internet. C63 is coming up. So, hopefully that doesn't pass before he gets the boot, or we may get the boot.
Yeah. Like what we've seen with the media takeover worldwide is just a few it's just a few control many, right? All over the world. And that's why the media narrative was the way it was. I mean, my whole life working in there, I never thought we were lying. I thought we were slanted about a lot of things, and I thought some things really made me question things, but never until COVID did it affect me. Now somebody was asking me to do something to my body, and I was like, pump the brakes here. And then as I started to look into it, look at what we found out. So yeah, I think everything needs an even playing field. I think that independent podcasters should be able to apply for grants and budgets and get all the bells and whistles that the corporations had. I think we all need to be on a level playing field. No more of our tax money going to people that don't report for us. So CTV, Global, CBC, I'm sorry, you had your time, you blew it. So if you want to be a corporation, fund yourself, send your own ads, and get your own subscribers. And you need to be just like me, you, all these other podcasters that come up with no budget. They have all the money in the world, access to helicopters, access to whatever, right? We don't have that. We have the internet and like a microphone. So
I always tell my CBC story from years ago. I
Yeah.
was working for private radio back then. This is like back in the 80s. And we set up a remote at the local fair. And there was just me, right? So I'm carrying the signage, I'm carrying the speakers, I'm carrying the equipment, I'm carrying all that stuff by myself. And we're on Media Row. And so the CBC sets up next to me, 8 people and this massive truck, 8 of them, right? And so I walked over and I said, "And you are?" "Well, I'm the associate producer." I said, "What do you
I'm
mean
the
the
field
I'm like,
producer, yeah.
I'm the associate. I'm the assistant producer. So you're the assistant's assistant."
Yeah.
What? And there's
Yeah.
8. What are you doing? You sat there drinking coffee all afternoon. You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And they're making $30 an hour. Back then, that was a lot of money. So
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a lot of money
that's what
today. Yeah.
that's what the CBC
Well, that's
always
the
has been.
CBC.
Yeah.
They have the money, they can send you out. Sometimes it's bare bones with Global because they get one guy to do a lot of things. Like as a director there, I worked really hard. I did a lot of shows. So even though we got paid well, we worked for it. But CBC has ample money. Ample, yeah. So anyway, so we have some closing thoughts on what happened. What future predictions do we have now Trump's in? What are the first few things he's going to be doing?
Well, there's a school of thought out there that says
right?
the Democrats they'll never let him take office. Remember that even though he won the election last night, he's only the president-elect now, and he doesn't take office until January.
January.
They're going to take the whole, what do they call it? A coronation? No, it's not a coronation. It's
inauguration. I don't know.
Inauguration. That's what they call it. So they have the inauguration in January, and then he officially becomes the president.
But I think he's got it. Or do you think something's going to happen? I think he's got it.
Let's just say that a couple of times in the past few months, they've tried to shoot him.
Yeah. So okay.
Who knows? He's the president-elect now, which means he's going to have a much better security detail through the Secret Service, obviously, now. But is there somebody on the inside of the Secret Service who let that thing happen in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way that guy should have gotten as close as he did. But
yeah. I know. They've done it. But going on the thing that he's in, I think he's in, barring any extenuating circumstances, I expect a cleanup of the border. I expect the migrant crisis to lessen. I expect good relationships with other countries. I expect.
Do you think he's going to do the mass deportation? He's going to actually try and
Maybe
kick out all
not.
of these illegals?
Maybe not.
That's a
He's not
big
doesn't seem like the type
operation.
to wrangle people out, but maybe he can stop more people from coming in because a lot
Yeah.
of the migrants get like EBT, like food stamps, and they get more than the Americans get. It's really gone tits up over there. It's that's not right. I mean, and we're doing that here too with temporary foreign workers. That's another show. But all the things that he promised, he's got to start doing, and even the little things like people call for the Epstein list, people call for the JFK files to be released and stuff like that. So he's got a lot on his plate. But I'm sure that him and his team will be will do the best they can. I mean, time will tell, right?
I
So,
think that
but yeah.
RFK, when he brings RFK onto his staff, I think that the big pharma is going to get straightened out very quickly.
Pharma is gonna
I think
get it.
that war in Ukraine is going to get straightened out very
Yeah.
quickly as well. I think over time, and this is not immediate, but over time, he's probably going to withdraw from the World Health Organization again. And
Good.
you know, the United Nations is
Yep.
probably on the table as well. It wouldn't surprise me
A
considering
lot of that
everything that they
too.
have planned to do. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that could possibly happen in the next few years. And then there's the school of thought that says, well, Donald Trump is just part of the machine. He's just
That's right. People do think that. My partner thinks that. He's like, he was one of them. He was one of the elites, and he could have been better about the vaccine. So I don't agree with him on that, but at least he wasn't for mandates.
right.
So
Right.
that's all I care about. Don't mandate me. That's it. I don't care about this. But that I don't want to be mandated. But Trump would have the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the popular vote. Whereas if he won in 2020, it would be mostly Democratic, I believe. So I
Well,
think
he would have
that
had the House, but the Senate was Democrat. This time around, he's got a very powerful mandate. This is the first time he's won the popular vote, and he won it by 5 million. I mean, that's pretty big. No
yeah.
Republican has won the popular vote in 20 years, not since George W. Bush did it in 2004. So that's a big deal. He's
Yeah.
got the Senate. I think he's got 52, 53 Senate seats right now. They could have as many as 55. So that's not quite a super majority, but it's definite control. And the House of Representatives as well, and the Supreme Court, like you say. So this is a powerful mandate for him to do the things that he says he's going to do. The only thing that might stop him is them shooting him. That's it, right? Because the Democrats are still going to be there, and we shouldn't forget this as well, that the lefties, the wokeists, they're not shutting up. They're not going away. Look at Alberta right now. I mean, they had that big rally a couple of weekends ago because of Danielle Smith and her parental rights bill.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Even though CTV claimed there was thousands of people that showed up and then later said it was 2,000 and showed us a picture of what looked like maybe 200.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, they're not those people. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. So we need to find a way to somehow silence. I hate saying this,
Mm.
but there needs to be a way to quell that stuff, because it's not good for our society. It's very Marxist thinking, right? And if left
It's
alone,
dividing us. It's still
yeah,
dividing us. Yeah.
if left unfunded, right? Let's remember too that a lot of these, gender transition courses and clinics and school programs and public library books and all that stuff, that's funded by the federal government. That's funded by provincial governments.
hell
That's
yeah.
funded
Yeah.
by international NGOs. If we can stop the funding to all of these Marxists out there, then they're just going to quiet on their own. They'll go back to their natural state.
You take
which is
away the
like,
funding, that's right. That levels the playing field.
Yeah.
That does level the playing field.
Well, it sends it back to its natural state, Anita, which means that they're chirping in the corner like a gerbil, like beep, beep, beep,
Chirp in
beep,
the
because
corner. Yeah.
they sit there and they say to us, well, we only represent 0.2% of the population. Why are you so upset? Because you've got 50% of the media. For such a small portion of the population, why are you so overrepresented in media and government and corporations, for
Yeah.
goodness sake?
And
If you
unfortunately,
have all of those
yeah.
entities on your side, you are not the resistance.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen until you hear it in the news, right? So a lot of people still think that if there's a big fire somewhere and then you don't hear about it on the news or you don't hear on the radio or you don't see anything, it didn't happen. So
Right.
if it's not on the news, it didn't happen. But there are a lot of things happening that you don't hear on the news, and that's why you have people like us, right? That's or people like you because you do this every day. You know what? I guess I want to thank your audience for jumping on this stream. Shadoe, you have such a big audience. Right now, there's like still 450 people watching. I so value and appreciate that. This was so much fun, but Shadoe, there's so much more to talk about because we gotta unpack Canada.
I
There's so
think
much stuff happening here.
I
So we
think
gotta
that
talk more.
you and I should probably every couple of weeks or so appear on each other's show.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
let's do it.
what would be so wrong with that? I mean, it's so Anita, I've been on your show today. Maybe in a couple of weeks' time, you come on my show. We just do one of these back and forth. I think
Let's
it's
do
fun.
it. Yeah. Because sometimes I think of things and I go, oh my God, I wonder what Shadoe would have to say about this. But then I get caught up in life. But if I have Wednesdays off. So maybe this is something I could do on Wednesdays and
Love it.
do
I
a
would
live
love it.
stream. Yeah, I would love it too. I so appreciate you and your input and all the hard work that you do. I appreciate all the people that commented because I'm going to go back and read it all. I appreciate you guys for watching on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Okay. Too big to rig. It was too big to rig. Way to go. Way to go, Trumpy. You did it. Thank you all for watching this stream. I'll put some links in the description a little bit later on. Thank you, Shadoe. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Bye. Bye, everyone.